So what I want to say though is, a lot of us have something that we're seeking to do. And let me tell you, everybody got a gift. Everybody got a gift. We're not gonna dwell on that right now. I got a future episode, a future live. We're gonna talk about your gift that God has given you. But we're not talking about that today. But everybody got a gift. All right. Everybody has been given abilities by Jesus Christ. Right? They've been given abilities. The Holy Spirit has something that everybody can do in order to not just be a blessing for you and your family, right? Because guess what? If you don't work, you don't eat. But also to be a blessing for the world, and also a blessing to share the glory of God through. You see what I'm saying? But what I want to do right now, right? I want us to look at something through Jesus's eyes, through his life, and to use it to peer into our entrepreneurial endeavors, into how it is we go about connecting with what God is calling for us to do, and to just use it as a mark, as a test, right? There's no greater example than Jesus himself. So we want to use Jesus as we come in first for this first time that we're going to really dig into some of these principles that I believe the Lord has been sharing me. I want to share with you guys, right? There's no better place to start in the scriptures than to start with Jesus Christ, right? So I want to look at Luke chapter 2. Luke chapter 2. This is young Jesus. Young Jesus, okay, right? So I know a lot of y'all know about old Jesus. And not old Jesus like Jesus is old, right? But older Jesus. Y'all know about 30 plus Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know about Jesus 30 plus, right? Who out there knows about Jesus be pre-30? You know what I'm saying? What about Jesus pre-30? What y'all know about Jesus pre-30? Okay? Because Jesus pre-30 got some lessons for us out here, especially us who are seeking, right, to do something for God's glory, for God's honor, right? For some of us who are out here trying to grow our business, grow our ministries, right? Grow our impact. Pre-30 Jesus got something to teach us today, okay? So I want to look here at Luke chapter 2. I don't know if you got your word with you, right? Let me see, matter of fact, if I can share my screen here so you guys can see what I'm looking at, right? So give me a second. Let me see if I can pull up Luke chapter 2, and I want to share my screen with you so you guys can actually see what I'm reading in the scripture, so we can trek together here. Now, I want you guys to have some patience with me because this is my first time doing this stuff, okay? All right. So, all right. So Luke chapter, I don't know what you guys see right now. You know what? Let me not do that because I don't even know what I'm doing. All right. I don't even know how to do it properly. So let's just stick with it. I'm gonna just read it to you guys. Luke chapter 2, we start at verse 41, right? This is the story of Jesus when he now had turned 12 years old. He was 12 years old. And when you're 12, in a Jewish society back in those days, when you're 12 years old, it's time for you to become, you're no longer a child. You moved on to, you're now a youth, right? You got some responsibilities. It's time for you to be putting your head to use, right? It's time for you to put your hands to the plow, okay? And so you got a different level of responsibilities at 12 years old as a young Jewish boy, okay? And so Jesus is now 12 years old. And because he's 12, he's now required to go and to participate in all the feasts, all the festivities that the Jews had during that time. If you're not familiar, right, there are 7 different specific feasts. And if you're not familiar with that, man, you want to get familiar because those feasts are very important when we're talking about the plan of salvation, right? And so there's one feast, right, that's called the Passover. I know some of you guys are familiar with this, right? There's a feast that's called the Passover feast. Now, Jesus at 12 years old is now going to be and start participating in the feast of Passover, right? He's going to be connected with the others who are older, who all are going to Jerusalem 1 out of 3 times a year, right? For these specific feasts to participate in these festivities. So we're looking at Luke chapter 2, verse 41. It says, now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of Passover. Not just Jesus' parents, but all these other parents went up too, right? Because this is something that the Jews did, right? To worship. It says, verse 42, and when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast, right? And when they had fulfilled the days, as they returned, the child Jesus tarried behind in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother knew not of it. So Joseph and Mary, some of y'all are thinking and considering like that one time where y'all lost y'all nephew or y'all child, right? When y'all went to that theme park, maybe something like that, right? But think about the anxiety that they were going to start feeling when they realized that Jesus wasn't with them, right? Now, let's keep trekking, because I want us to get to a point so we can see this lesson that I want us to think about, right, and consider when we're talking about our entrepreneurial journeys, right, and endeavors. It says, but they, supposing him to have been in the company, went a day's journey, and they sought him among their kinsfolk and acquaintance. And when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem, seeking him. So think about it. They're in a caravan leaving Jerusalem, right? Jesus still in Jerusalem. They don't know where he is, right? But look, and it came to pass that after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. He's sitting among the leaders, right? The priests, right? The Pharisees, the Sadducees, those who the scribes, right? All those who knew and were learners in the law, right? In the practices and the customs and the feasts, right? Of the Jewish people. He was sitting in the midst of them learning, right? Then it says, verse 47, and all them that heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. And when they saw him, they were amazed. Now look at what it says after this. And his mother said unto him, son, why have you thus dealt with us? Because your father and I have sought for you sorrowing. Now, if we go back to verse 43, we realize now we're in Luke chapter 2. We're in Luke chapter 2, verse 41 to 52 for those who are trying to figure out. Maybe just join the live, right? Again, this is Tent Makers 101. Right, we're talking about biblical entrepreneurship, right? But if you looking and you see what's going on right now, Mary is now approaching Jesus as she sees him in the midst of the doctors, right? Teaching them, right? They're not understanding his understanding and his answers. But she now comes and approaches Jesus, child Jesus, it says, and says, look, me and your father have been searching for you. We've been seeking for you. But now, verse 43 lets us know who she's talking about. Mary, when she's talking about me and your father are searching for you, who is she talking about? Is Mary talking about the Lord? Who's Mary considering? Who's she talking about when she's saying me and your father have been searching for you? Me and your father have been searching for you. Who is she talking about? Anybody out there, right? Anybody have an answer? Verse 43 tells us she's talking about Joseph, right? She's talking about Joseph. She's talking about that earthly father, right? That's who she's considering. That's who she's talking about right now. But now look at Jesus' answer. He says in verse 49, and he said unto them, how is it that ye sought me? Knew you not that I must be about my father's business? Jesus said, look, did you not know that I must be about my father's business? Now, I want to ask you guys, who is Jesus talking about? Who is Jesus talking about right now? My wife says God the Father, right? Y'all can't hear in the background, but she said he's talking about God the Father. Jesus is talking about his Father, the Father which art in heaven, right? But Mary is talking about Joseph. Now, if I say, okay, what was the Father's, because Jesus says, I'm going to be about, did you not know I'm going to be about my Father's business? What is the Father's business that Jesus is talking about? let me see if I can ascertain some comments out there. Again, it's my first time doing this, so I'm trying to figure out how to work this platform. But when Jesus says, I'm gonna be about my Father's business, who is the Father that Jesus is talking about and that Jesus is considering? You already know it's the Father, right? And the business that he's to be about, right, is the work of salvation, right? That's his Father's business. That's his Father's business that he's given him, right? To do and to accomplish. He has given him the work of reconciliation, the work of salvation, right? Now, I want you to think of and look at this. If we look at John chapter 9, Jesus says in verse 4, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day, the night cometh when no man can work. This work was the work that his Father gave him to do, right? During these 3 days or 3 years, right? Again, if we're talking prophetic history, right? It's the work of salvation. We understand, we know this is the work of salvation. But now I'm gonna ask another question. This is the Father's work. This is God the Father's work. What was Joseph's work? What was Joseph's work? Because when Mary's coming saying, me and your father sought for you, she's not saying me and God the Father was seeking for you. That's not what she's talking about. She's definitely not talking about God the Father. Okay, that's not what she's talking about. Okay, she's not talking about God the Father. She's talking about Joseph. And so my question to you guys out there, you guys may be watching the replay, right? You guys may be thinking, oh, Joseph he was working with wood, right? He was a carpenter, right? So when we talking about Joseph's business, Joseph was a carpenter, right? God the Father sent Jesus to do what? His work that he had given him, the business that he had sent him into the world to do, was a work of salvation. Now, I want us to look at Luke chapter 2 and verse 50 because I want us to see where we are today. I have to look at this and say, Lionel, you have to look at yourself. You have to look at your business. You have to look at your entrepreneurial pursuits through this lens, right? Luke chapter 2 verse 50 says, and they understood not the saying which he spake unto them, and he went down with them. Who was the them? Joseph and Mary. That's what he's talking about. He didn't go down with them, Mary and God the Father was always with him. You understand what I'm saying, right? But he went down with Joseph and Mary and came to Nazareth and was, somebody see that next word it says? He was subject unto them, but his mother kept all these things in her heart. Then verse 52 says, and Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. He increased in wisdom, stature, and favor with God and man. What am I trying to say, right? What am I using this to say? And what do I want you guys to think about and to consider, right? Jesus, at the age of 12, knew what his life mission was. He knew what his God-given purpose was. He knew where he was supposed to end up. He knew and had a vision of what it is his life was supposed to do and bring an impact he's supposed to have. He understood it all at that moment, right? At this time, at 12 years old, as Jesus was in Jerusalem, he understood all of those things. But yet, what did he do? Verse 51 says, he went with them, Mary, Joseph, and was subject to them. And so what did Jesus do? Because he was subject to them. You know what Jesus did? Jesus worked for 18 years. But I want you to understand, Jesus worked for 18 years. It's not even like he worked for 18 years and he didn't yet know what it is that God had for him to do in life. It's not like he still didn't know what his purpose was. It's not like he understand. I still don't understand what my niche is, right? I still don't understand what the direction of my business or ministry is supposed to go in. I still don't understand what my gift and talent is. That's not even it yet, right? Like Jesus knew, he understood, but yet he still subjected himself to his mother and to his father. And he was a carpenter working with Joseph as a carpenter till he passed, of course, right? But he worked for 18 years until it was ready for him to then, by God's leading, right, go on to his next journey.